Good day, everyone, and welcome to Just Minding My Business Media. We're happy that you're here today. Hope you're having an amazing day in the neighborhood. Today, we are happy to bring the special guest today. Let me go ahead and get his bio here so that way I can introduce him properly, which I had here and then I just lost it. So please bear with me as I recover that. Okay, here we are. Well, today we have Jim Saliba. Did I say that right, Jim?
It's Jim Saliba.
Saliba. Okay, thank you so much. Who is a certified coach, trainer, and public speaker with a BA, MBA, and over 30 years of experience in the leadership world. His career began as a software engineer before being promoted to management in the IT industry, where he eventually became the vice president of a $4 billion tech company. He has leveraged his years of experience and experimentation to develop the successful triple E structure to help his clients get unstuck so that they can progress to the next level of leadership. Welcome, Jim. We are happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Wow, leadership. That's a huge one because everybody has their own definition of what that looks like.
Not only do they have their own definition, there are more books, business books on leadership than anything else, and everything just kind of takes a little piece of it. It is an enormous topic.
Yes, I would have to agree with you. And it is like, some people are good leaders and some people not so much. So, what's a good leader in your eye?
Well, everybody's going to be a little bit different in their style, but a leader is, in my eyes, is really getting everybody to work together without me having to say what to do every day.
Okay.
Right? I was working with a client and he said, I want my team to be on automatic. And I think that's the sign of a good leader.
Yes, and I have to agree with you. Because if you got to tell everybody what to do, then you might as well do it yourself to a
And that
certain
happen
degree.
and that happens a lot. I see many times people grow within organizations and they are promoted because of the technical side of their job. They know the technical part, but they don't
Mhm.
know how to manage and they don't really know leadership. But organizations aren't providing that as well. It's amazing. I was looking at some statistics recently and I try to stay up on them, but 83% of companies say that they should have leadership training at all levels, yet only 5% of the companies actually do it.
I can agree with that. I can definitely believe that because working in corporate America myself and seeing various different leadership styles,
Hmm.
many of them need training. And to me, it needs to be an ongoing effort, not just one and done.
Well, that's one of the problems I think in corporate training in general. Uh, we'll send you to a class 3 or 4 days, and we expect you to come back as an expert. But statistics actually show, unless you use that, what you've learned immediately, you learn 70% of what you learned within 7 days.
Wow. Wow. That's interesting. So, why did you start this career from IT to leadership?
From I started off in as a programmer, and I grew. And at one point during a reshuffle of an organization, I got my first job as a manager. And it was interesting because I wasn't a manager of a small group. I was a manager of three managers who had their groups. So, just throw in the deep end of the pool, right? And I really wanted to do right by people and do a right job. So I went out and read everything I could read. I started taking courses. I went back and did my MBA. But I decided that I ended up with a style that I would describe in three words: democratic, coaching, and servant. Democratic because that's the way I like to do decision making. I get all the information from everybody who works with me, for me, around me, and then use that data to make a decision. I like input. Coaching because I like to grow the people who work for me, and I like to have them come and be the best person they can be, and I coach them to do that. Servant because I like to clear the runway so they can do the job.
Okay. And one of the things that you said, I like the coaching part because unfortunately, in many companies, it's more of a dictatorship, not an opportunity to help people to grow. And from where I'm sitting, when you help people to grow, then
Mhm.
they feel excited about coming to work and doing their job because at the end of the day, they feel like they're going to be able to take something away that can better them.
Yes. I can tell you this in my experience. When I started having this team, it took me a while to develop my one on ones with them. And I ended up with a formula that was we meet once a week, or we schedule once a week. If we can't make it, we don't reschedule it. We skip it and go to the next one. This way, I know I'm meeting with my people, each one of them one on one, 2, 3 times a month minimum. It's their meeting. It's not my meeting. I scheduled the first one. Now it's up to them. I don't want status. We have a status meeting for that. So it's their agenda. And I want them to give me an agenda the day before so I can come prepared for them and use their time as productive as possible. Also, at least once a month on that agenda must be personal development on that. And
Um,
that coaching piece started growing, and that started building me as a coach. At one point in time, I was leaving a group and going to another area of the company, and I was telling my people in their one on ones, and most of them said, "Can we still have our monthly growth meeting?"
wow.
Even though they weren't working for me. And I still have that with a couple of people. They left the company, I left the company, we still have that. And that kind of grew into my whole coaching business.
Wow. Wow. Because that matters. That really matters. Now, in your coaching session, because sometimes within the company, it could be a situation where people kind of griping about what's not going right, and you know how that can go. So, how do you keep that from happening in your one-on-ones?
Well, I don't keep it from happening.
Oh, okay.
People must let it out.
Okay.
So I find it, yes, we have to go through it. It's not easy. So I'm like, okay, if that's what you need, 5 minutes, let's go. Tell me everything you want to tell me. Then 5 minutes is done. Okay, now back to a kind of a Socratic method. What do you want to do about it? What's in our power to change it from where it is to where you want to be?
Okay. Okay. And that's interesting because I think, in my experience in working in corporate America, there were so many things that I didn't like. Um, that I didn't have really control over changing that with the management. However, how I responded to it helped me get through it.
Yes. So at one point in my career, we had Dale Carnegie come in and doing teaching. I took a number of courses. In fact, I was teaching courses for Dale Carnegie for a little bit. And that was one of the things that came up in that is we can't change people, but we can change how we react to it.
Mm-hmm.
And negative energy comes to negative, and positive energy comes to positive. If we just keep complaining about it, we'll keep finding all the things that are wrong. But if we start putting a positive energy to what we can do and how we react to it, then we start seeing the positive things within the organization.
Mm-hmm. Right. Because how your response is critical, especially to things you can't change.
That's right. And we can take a stance that's going to zap all the energy out of us,
Yes.
or a way that is going to positively build energy with us. And it's all how we react to that. So there's a whole piece of coaching called positive psychology that's built on that kind of concept.
Okay. So, transparency and alignment. Can you define that for me?
Well, that's my favorite topic. Thank you for asking that question. You know, I've worked in tech all my career, and for one example, I was coaching a client. He was a senior director. He had 27 teams going on, and every week or every 2 weeks, we got together and had a meeting with all the leaders. And they all had their own spreadsheet and their own way of showing it, their data and their progress. And at the end of one of them, I went to the senior director and said, you know what? I'm not seeing what they're saying. They're saying they're going to be done at this time. I think they're going to go at least 12 weeks further, if not more. And he said, no, 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 I trust it. Well, 2 weeks before they were all supposed to be done, guess what happened? They said, oh, yeah, we need 12 more weeks. So I turned around and I said to him afterwards, they just stole $7 million out of your pocket.
Mm.
And he was like, what do you mean? What do you mean they stole? Well, if they gave you this information before, you would have had a chance to make decisions and maybe pull it in. But now they're asking for 12 more weeks. If you take how much a team costs per week and multiply it out, plus the amount of money you're not making by putting this out in the market, it's roughly, back of a napkin, $7 million. And he's like, oh, this happens all the time. We run late all the time. But they're really stealing the way to make decision. And the whole thing was there was no transparency. If
Mm.
in an organization where I've worked and consulted, where we made a single source of truth, everybody reports the same way, everybody's numbers are public to each other, we see the bad, we see the good, we see the ugly. But it allows us to make decisions.
Yes, I have to agree. I mean, I had a manager, and when we had projects, we did just that. There was pad in time for if it goes wrong, if this happens. So you're absolutely right. And it's smart goals, really sitting down, looking at the whole picture and what could go wrong. You got to account for that.
Mm-hmm.
you know, Everything has to be accounted for. And not doing so, like you said, is going to cost money.
And if that's the culture in the organization, that works when the market is good and there's money coming in. But as soon as the market comes tight, we start looking for everything we can save. And that's
Right.
where the pain comes in. But if you're doing it all along, then the pain, you're going to have much less pain when the market becomes tight.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the areas that leaders should focus on.
So When I coach leaders, as we said, there are many, many books out there and all focusing on tiny, tiny pieces. So when I coach leaders and they want to figure out what they want to grow, I have this four quadrant method. And then the first quadrant is all about vision and strategy. And some leaders have a hard time thinking far in the future. They're more tactical rather than strategic. But without a vision, we can't tell if we're going in the right direction. And when new things come in, we can't tell if we should do them or not do them. So vision and strategy is important. Second is, how do we execute? And you said something about SMART goals. I call them experiments. When we put a plan together, we put it together with the data that we have on hand. 2 weeks later, that data is updated and changed, but many people don't update their plan,
Mhm.
right? So I talk about building experiments. And if you remember in fifth grade, in our science fair project, we had to put the poster board and say, this is my experiment, and this is my hypothesis, and this is what we're going to do, and then it was prove or disproven. Well, we work in experiments in a time frame and say, I'm going to do this, and I think if I do this, I'm going to get that. If I think I do this, I'm going to sell more product or whatever it is, and give yourself time. Did I do it or didn't I do it? And if it didn't, what do we need to do? Right? You said now you understand risk and mitigate it. That's part of that. The third quadrant is about people and processes. Right? We used to say people, process, and technology. This is people, processes, and systems. How does that all work together? Culture, teams, collaboration. That's the whole third quadrant. And the last quadrant is all about executive presence. Do I do I have a good presence? Do I talk to people? Do I come across well? Do I pull it together? So those are my four quadrants in a nutshell. And basically, I work with clients. We put together a 30, 60, 90-day plan where each of those quadrants becomes a swim lane. And what am I doing about vision and strategy in 30, 60, 90 days? What am I doing about execution, system updates, and my own executive presence? And then we help move people along quarter by quarter by quarter.
Wow. And that's interesting. I really like that, breaking it down in sections. And one of the things you mentioned was cultures,
Mm.
and that can be really tricky if there's a certain culture in the organization that nobody's talking to each other, so to speak. And you mentioned that earlier about everybody having transparency and working together as one unit. So when that does not exist, how do you work through that?
Well, that's going to be different for every company and every culture, but we have to understand the culture first. And when you have a very small organization with a small number of people, we're always talking to each other. Those things are automatically transparent, and kind of alignment happens because we say, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that?
Yes.
As a company gets bigger and you have different teams and you need to collaborate across those teams, it becomes much more complicated. Plus, the norms of one team and quality are different from the other ones. So when they pass information or code or whatever back and forth, the quality is different, the code is different. So we need to kind of level set a lot of that. And that's very hard to do the larger the organization comes. And in fact, recently I was just writing a couple of blogs about collaboration across teams. And my last post was the 10 questions you can ask if you're to find out if your company needs a collaboration tune-up,
Oh,
right? And it,
okay.
and, and it just like 10 pains that come. So it's easier to recognize than to fix. This is change management. I've done a lot of business transformations and help organizations through that. But it gets back to those four quadrants. What's the vision? Where do we want to be? What is the type of culture we want to have? And how do we get there from here?
Hmm. Wow. So if people want to work with you, companies want to work with you, how do they do so?
Well, they can easily come to my website, which is jamessaliba.com. Boy, that's easy enough. And just post a question to me and I'll answer. Also, there you can book some time with me and get on my calendar, and we'll have a 30-minute virtual coffee. We do a lot of things virtual nowadays,
So we
and
do.
we'll talk about your situation and if I could help or who I could recommend.
Okay, I was going to ask you, that was going to be my next question. Sometimes you may have to pull in other resources, especially if the vision and the culture is clashing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
That was one of the questions I had. Do you sometimes find yourself in that situation?
Yes, often. So I have a lot of people that I've worked with and I know over the years. So I have a lot of resources to bring in and help people get to where they need to be. My goal and my mission, I say, is all about changing the world of work. And maybe I do that with leaders one conversation at a time, or I get to scale up and help bring other people in to do that.
All right. Yeah. So for leaders, let's talk about continual learning because sometimes as leaders, it all depends on the person because you should always be in a learning mode. As far
Hmm.
as I'm concerned, I feel like a baby can teach you something.
Yes.
you know. So what's your spill on continuous training and learning for a
Well,
leader?
I think you're right. The whole thing about learning continuously is very important. If COVID taught us anything, change can happen at any time
Mm-hmm.
in big or small ways, and it's going to stretch us from our comfort zone of what we know.
Yeah.
So, reaching out, finding a coach like myself, or a specialized coach in whatever you need to work with. Like I recently wrote a book, and I got a writing coach to help me do that because I'm just like anybody else. I can procrastinate like the best of them, and I needed that coach to get me over that. So I believe in mentoring, coaching. So and there's many of us out there.
Yes. The book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, my book is called The Six Step Leadership Challenge, and basically took a lot of my coaching process and broke it into six steps to help people do it on their own if they needed to do it on their own, kind of scaling my method out to many people. The four quadrants that I told you about is in there. It's a part of step number three of figuring out where you want to be and what the future needs to be. So you can start building your 30, 60, 90-day plan, which is parts of step four. Doing that plan. Step 5 and 6 is about doing that plan, tweaking it as you go along with your experiments, or maybe doing a big pivot because things aren't working the way you thought it was going to. And then as you get to the end of that 90-day plan, what should you celebrate? What worked? We should celebrate. We're so good at telling us what we did wrong, right?
Mm,
But we never celebrate what we did right. So celebrate those, build your next 30, 60, 90-day plan. We build on that. So my 6 steps is all about that. I'm currently doing an online course for that. That's coming soon. And I'm building some companion books to go with that. Maybe how to use the 6 step leadership plan to build your promotion journey, or to be successful. You got a new job, be successful in that first 30, 60, 90 days, or how to build your team better, to work together, to build that culture, and so on.
Wow, that's awesome. That is really awesome. I'm happy that we met and we're talking about this. So where can people get the book?
Oh, the book is on Amazon.
Okay.
So easily go there, Six Step Leadership Challenge, or just look up my name, James Saliba, and you'll find it there.
Okay. Wow. That is really, really. So one last comment or suggestion for leadership leaders out there that are really working on their game.
Hmm.
What would you say to them?
Well, working on your game is important, and you have to constantly be working on that.
Mhm.
But it's like going to the gym, wanting to lose weight. You need to have an accountability buddy, whether it's a coach, a family member, a friend, a coworker. That will keep you accountable. Like I said, I needed my own coach because I can procrastinate like the best of them, and most of us do. We fall into the four, what I call the four fears of leadership, right? I'm afraid to do this because I'm going to look foolish. I'm afraid to do this because I'm not going to be able to win or complete it, right? And one quadrant is about imposter syndrome. I can't do this because I have a confidence issue, and we all fall into these. And the fourth one is about vulnerability. I don't want to come across as being too vulnerable, and that's a whole other topic that's in the book. But everybody has these fears, and it stops us from doing it. So an accountability buddy is a key thing.
Yes, yes. I always say it can go either way. We can either do it or not do it
Hmm.
if nobody knows about it.
That's right. Even just even if you don't have an accountability buddy, if you talk about it and people know you're doing it, it starts
Yeah,
bringing that. Well, now I have to do it.
yes, yes. Because once you speak it, and my thing is the magic of writing. I do a lot of journaling, which sort of keeps me accountable because I feel like I don't want to lie to myself, but
Hmm.
and that's the way I look at journaling. As once I write it down, I just told myself that I'm going to do this, and I don't want to lie to me.
Right, right. Well, that's good that you could do that to yourself. A lot of people can say, "Well, I'm not lying to me. I'm just going to push it off.
Uh,
Oh, next week."
yes, and
Right.
then sometimes you do need accountability on certain things. I think when you're moving into a foreign area,
Hmm.
those fear factors that you spoke of definitely come up
Yeah. Yes.
because
Yes.
you just don't know what you don't know
Hmm.
because it's all brand new. And
Hmm.
that's really when you definitely need an accountability
Right.
partner because that definitely will either go one way or the other.
Right. Plus, things change in your life. Like myself, and I was listening to a couple of your other podcasts, people might have moved from a large organization into their own business. Well, I lost the power of a team because
Mm.
now I only have three people, and it's me, myself, and I. And I hate it when me and myself don't talk to each other. Right? So I lost the power of the team to talk to, bounce things off us, hold each other accountable. So I had to replace that. And
Mhm.
I use some people, and I hire some people like on Fiverr.com and some other places, Upwork, that not only do I give work off to, but it helps me be accountable because I need to keep them busy because I'm paying for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Wow, Jim. We're gonna have to do this again. This is really, really good. I am so glad we met
Hmm.
because the leadership is just an ongoing struggle for anybody that has a business, because we as leaders, we're constantly coming up with ideas.
Hmm.
Uh, like you said, things change, uh, either for the worse or whatever, or for the
Yep.
better, and all of which we have to address.
Yes. Leadership is all about change and moving things forward. And
Yeah.
thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying it. And yes, I would love to come back.
Yes, we would love to have you. And again, how do businesses connect with you?
Well, you can come to my website, jamessaliba.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I looked at my LinkedIn basically every day, so you can find me there, James Saliba. And those are probably the best two places. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm posting all the time. You can find me in these places.
Yes, and you said you had a blog. Uh,
Yes, so I have a blog on my website. Every Tuesday, I take some type of leadership topic and I write something about it. Um, I get it sometimes from talking to clients, what I see when I have clients and issues they're running into. And some people write me and say, "Can you tell me something about this?"
oh, okay. All right. So, Jim, thank you so much. Um, we can never get enough of talking about leadership as business owners, because we have to confirm that we're on the right page
Mm-hmm.
or moving in the right direction as a leader, because sometimes we can't see ourselves. Like
Yep.
someone told me, when you look in the mirror, you can only see one side at a time. You can't see all three sides.
That is so true. I like the way you put that. Yes. We
So,
can't, it's hard to see our blind spots, right?
yes, it is. So, talking to people like yourself is critical because then we can say, okay, are we doing this? Do we need to look at this and see, what we can fix in this
Hmm.
area? So, definitely appreciate your insight. And we are definitely going to do this again because I think people need to hear this more than one time.
Uh,
Uh,
yep, I would agree. And it's just like when I read a book today, I'm going to get something from it. And if I read the exact same book 3 years from now, I will find completely different things to pull from it because my life is different, my situation is different. So I'm connecting to that book differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much. We appreciate you and definitely want you to come back. And thank you, audience, for tuning in. We appreciate you as well. And everybody be safe.